Okay, just finished up our 8th week of quarantine, and it's Saturday night, so we are doing a movie night. So I have a quadruple feature planned for this evening. So when I'm talking to people about movies that scare them, I tend to find that most people fall in one of two categories. There are people that are scared by real-world stuff, murderers, stalkers, and then there are people that are scared by more supernatural movies, like ghosts, aliens, stuff like that. Me and Gina are both more scared by supernatural stuff. I'm kind of scared by ghosts, and she's really freaked out by aliens. And so that's what we're focusing on tonight. Our theme tonight is scary alien encounters. We're going to revisit some movies that scared us in our childhood, revisit some of our Kindertrauma, and see how some of them hold up. So our first movie for tonight is M. Night Shyamalan's Signs. Say what you will about M. Night Shyamalan, this guy does tension better than almost anyone. He has a terrific understanding of cinematic language and how to make scares work. And if you don't agree with that, I mean, just go revisit The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs. His first 3 movies, well, technically his first movie was called Wide Awake, and nobody's really seen that one. But the first 3 thrillers that he made are really fantastic, and I think are good enough to forgive anything that might have come after that. And it's a great example of how you can take such a big concept like an alien invasion and really make it kind of a personal story just by focusing on the one family that lives in the farmhouse. The performances are all terrific. Kind of adding to the oddball energy of the movie is 2 of Hollywood's biggest wackos, Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix, both star in this movie. Both of them are great. They play brothers, and they're helping raise Mel Gibson's kids, which are played by a Culkin kid and Abigail Breslin. So Signs is a movie that really scared me a ton when it came out. And our second movie that we're going to watch is one that really scared Gina when she was a kid. In fact, she still talks about this as like one of the scariest movies she's ever seen. So it might be kind of a funny choice for us to be watching on Scary Alien Encounters night. But we're going to be watching Tim Burton's Mars Attacks. And believe it or not, Gina's actually not the only person I've ever met that was scared by this movie when they were a kid, which is kind of silly to me, but I get it. When Mars Attacks came out, I was actually really frustrated. Mars Attacks is based off of a card series, Topps released a card series in the 60s, in 1962. It was a series of cards that told a story about an alien invasion, and they were really violent. So the aliens had ray guns, and they, like, killed dogs. That was actually the most controversial card. It was an alien killing a dog right in front of a kid. And I was obsessed with these cards. Now, by the time I was a kid and I was trying to track these cards down, I couldn't really find them because parents in the 60s started seeing these kids who would buy them. And they would come in a pack of like 5 with a stick of bubble gum, and you could try to collect the whole collection. Parents were up in arms about how violent these trading cards were. And just across the country, so many of them were destroyed. And now, today, to try to have a complete collection, it's very rare. So to find a complete collection, they're pretty expensive. Here's kind of what they look like. The art was very cool. It was very, like, look, there's like a giant cockroach crawling into a bathroom with like a naked woman who's covered by steam. So parents would get really steamed by these trading cards charged by Martians. I was obsessed with these cards. I wanted to collect them. And then in the 90s, they also released a second series of them, as well as a comic book series. And I had all of the comic books, and I loved the story of Mars Attacks. And the thing that was really unique about it, aside from the crazy-looking aliens, was part of the plotline was the aliens sent these meteors down to Earth before they invaded that had these chemicals that got into the air, and then it got to all of the bugs around the world, and all of the bugs grew to like hundreds of times their normal size. So Earth was like decimated by all of these giant bugs that were wiping out humanity. That's when the aliens came down and just kind of took over. I thought that was a really cool approach to the kind of alien invasion story that's pretty common, to like send down a pre-army to kind of take care of humanity first. And I had really grand ambition to someday get the rights to Mars Attacks, and I was going to do a huge, intense horror sci-fi trilogy of films. That was like my life's goal. I was outlining this massive film project that was someday my goal to make. And then Tim Burton's film came out, and it was a comedy, and I was really annoyed by that. It really pissed me off that he took the source material that was so rich and cool and original, and he just kind of turned it into like a dumb comedy. I did like it when I went and saw it. I was obsessed with everything Mars Attacks, so of course I went and saw it, and I had a poster of it in my room. But I was still always a little displeased by what could have been. But regardless, Mars Attacks is a lot of fun. The Lisa Marie character of the Martian woman is straight out of the comic books, and I think that sequence is fantastic. This is also star-studded. It's one of the most star-studded movies ever made. Jack Nicholson plays 2 roles, even the really small roles that almost don't have any lines. Like there's a soldier who gets sent off to war. It's Jack Black. And a ton of other really big names are in this movie as well. So it's fun. It's a great ensemble. The aliens, I guess they really scared a lot of kids when they were younger. So this is responsible for a lot of Kindertrauma that's kind of floating around. Our second movie we're going to watch is Mars Attacks. Movie number 3 is a movie I've been trying to get Gina to watch for years because she is so scared of aliens. It's one that scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. We're going to watch Fire in the Sky. I haven't watched this movie in over a decade, so I can't actually vouch for how solid of a movie it's going to be. All I know is that the last 10 minutes or so of this movie are really horrifying. At least they were when I was much younger. It really scared me. It's a true account of an alien abduction that happened, and a lot of it is more of like a character drama, kind of like following along this guy's life and his story. But when it goes horror, if I recall, it goes full on horror. But Fire in the Sky, we'll see how it holds up. I remember it being really, really scary when I was a kid. So that's our third alien encounter movie. Okay, our last movie for the evening is one we're taking a little bit of a chance on. It's one I actually haven't seen before. It just came out. It's called The McPherson Tape, aka UFO Abduction, I think is what it was also released as. This movie is put out by AGFA, or the American Genre Film Archive. They are doing the Lord's work. They're finding obscure films that never got a wide release. They're remastering them for a new audience. They're working with another company called Bleeding Skull that is excavating all kinds of SOV movies, or shot on video, which was this really bizarre subgenre of films in the 80s and 90s, where basically totally unprofessional people were going and making movies and getting them released and giving them very lavish hand-painted covers, and they would get released in video stores. Because when you were walking around video stores in the 90s and you look at a crazy cover for Evil Dead right next to another movie, you don't really know if it's the same quality or not, because you couldn't look stuff up on your phone, you couldn't find trailers. So a lot of these SOV movies were kind of much like what we're doing right now. You went in totally blind and you had no idea what you were going to get. Now, SOV movies are usually pretty crazy because they were people that weren't technically in the industry. They didn't all have writing backgrounds, so they would kind of cobble together these very strange movies where they would do the effects themselves. A lot of them were kind of horror films, and so they have a very homemade quality. And the reason they're called shot on video movies is because this was before prosumer cameras. So there's kind of home video cameras that people use, especially in the 90s and early 2000s when they were making their home videos. And there's professional quality film equipment that people would make movies with. The kind of in-between are called prosumer cameras. That's what a lot of us use for our short films, our indie stuff out here in Hollywood. Shot on video movies didn't even have prosumer level equipment because that wasn't really a thing at the time. So most of them are shot on camcorders and edited together themselves. And since there was kind of no restraint on what they could do, the movies are absolutely insane, especially some of the ones that Bleeding Skull Video is kind of finding and remastering, like this movie called Jungle Trap. You can see what I was saying about kind of the lavish hand-painted covers. If you were a kid and you saw this on a video shelf, you would certainly grab this. And here's one that's very appealing looking called Night Feeder. So I have been kind of diving into shot on video movies. They are absolutely crazy. So why the McPherson Tape is apparently sort of special is because this is a found footage movie that precedes almost all other found footage movies. So it was before the Blair Witch Project. It was before The Last Broadcast. The box does say it's the first found footage movie. I challenged that. I think this was 1986. 1989. So, I mean, Cannibal Holocaust was way before this. It's supposed to be pretty scary. I guess we'll see. If the movie turns out to be a turd, I'm gonna last minute swap right when we're done watching for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That will be the unofficial fifth movie of the evening, Close Encounters. My friend Dana was terrified by this movie when she was a kid, not by any of the aliens or anything like that, but by the song that they play at the end, which I won't hum right now in case she's watching. So Close Encounters of the Third Kind is actually, it has really intense UFO sequences and scenes where there's like bright lights flashing and stuff like that, and I think it is kind of a scary movie that frightened me quite a bit when I was a kid. But our official fourth selection is the McPherson Tape. Okay, I'm just gonna follow up on my scary alien encounters. Signs holds up. The family dynamic is really touching. I was also taken with the cinematography. Tak Fujimoto's like interplay of light and dark is exceptional. The way he uses shadows is very unsettling and quite beautiful. Mars Attacks is still a lot of fun. You know, I still watch it and think of what could have been, or maybe could someday be. But what I was taken by this time around is the economy of storytelling. There are so many different characters in the movie. The movie balances so many different storylines, and it balances them all effectively. And you see movies that balance a big ensemble, like Magnolia or Robert Altman's Shortcuts, but those movies are also 3 hours long, and Mars Attacks is 1 hour and 45, and it doesn't really feel like it skirts on anyone's story really that much. So it's a very economically told story, so I actually thought that aspect of it was pretty impressive. The digital effects don't hold up. The CG aliens, they look a little wonky, and it kind of makes me sad because Tim Burton originally wanted stop motion animation for the aliens, and I think that would make the movie hold up a lot better today, because right now the movie is like a kind of a satirizing a time period of films like sci-fi monster movies from the 50s. That's the style that it's emulating. Those are the movies that it's kind of sending up. But there's a disconnect when you watch it, because it perfectly nails that style of movie, but the CGI doesn't fit at all. If they had emulated the style of how they made the monsters from those movies as well, it would just be like a dead-on portrayal of them. As it stands now, it's kind of a weird amalgam of past and present. The effects aren't holding up, so kids watching that movie now are probably going to be very discombobulated and like, what the hell am I watching? And it is a pretty unique film. It is very one of a kind. So it is fun. It's pretty funny. There's a lot of good jokes, and all the actors go for it. Everyone really delivers. Nobody phones it in. Third movie was Fire in the Sky. You know, the middle hour of the movie, it drags a little as the town is trying to figure out the mystery of what happened to this guy, and they think his friends murdered him. That stuff's not always the most compelling. However, the 10-minute stretch that actually takes place in the UFO at the end of the film, there's a lot of really interesting imagery in there, and it's still pretty horrifying. The aliens are super creepy, so I think that one still holds up for like Kindertrauma horror film of aliens. That one really scared me when I was a kid. Okay, now what I really need to talk about, the fourth movie, the McPherson Tape. I can't, in good conscience, actually recommend this film to people that are not die-hard horror found footage aficionados, so I'm officially changing my fourth film to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This one kind of thematically fits better with the 3 previous films anyway. This is one that I watched as a kid that freaked me out, the scene where the kid gets abducted, as well as Richard Dreyfuss in the truck out on the kind of lonely, deserted road when the UFO comes by. Those 2 scenes are still really effective, and they really freaked me out when I was a kid. So if we're keeping with the theme of movies that really scared us when we're younger, this one's going to fit better anyway. The McPherson Tape, it was interesting, but it's a lot of bad acting. It's a lot of screaming of the guy holding the video camera. Thankfully, it's only 1 hour and 3 minutes, but still, it was sort of a frustrating viewing experience. And I watched all the special features right afterwards as well, and one of the guys who released the film kind of threw a little shade on Cannibal Holocaust, kind of implying that it's not actually the first found footage horror movie. And I don't know exactly what his argument is, but I think it's that since the bulk of Cannibal Holocaust isn't technically found footage, some of it is more like kind of more straightforward cinematic filmmaking, that it's not technically a found footage horror film. But I disagree with that, and I think kind of trying to discredit a film that came before that really broke boundaries just to serve your own release narrative is not really honest. You got to kind of pay tribute to what came before you. So I don't think the McPherson Tape should be advertised that way, but you know, regardless, I'm not going to officially recommend that one. That one is strictly for curious or found footage enthusiasts. So those are the recommendations.